This week on football, the Bellingham brothers bag a brace.
Could have changed my mind, I was halfway there. 100 metres. I just put 9 gal in a sprinter.
Tom Broadbent shoots all the way from North Shields to South Shields. Messi causes the greatest uh-oh in commentating history.
Gramaski in the middle. Taylor cutting it to his right, trying to get it to Gramaski. Uh-oh. Lionel Messi around Zimmerman. Messi!
Paul Cook is two different people.
Has he made a save? You know, I don't feel we've worked Oldham's goalkeeper anywhere near enough, but it looked like it was Peterson now to a 1-0 win. You know, unfortunately...
And here's a camel on a zip line.
Into my mind, tell me stories of all that are great. Cherish these days before it's too late. If you could turn around yourself.
That's right, welcome back. It's episode 3 of the season, or 42, depending on how long you've been listening to us. Football is definitely back, and so is Goalposts for Jumpers. We're going to kick this episode off with another quiz question, as you know we always do. That quiz question is, we saw Paul Cook just now speaking in 2 different voices for some reason. He was speaking in 2 different voices, but the question is, who does Paul Cook manage? Who does Paul Cook manage? Which football team? The answer will be at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned for the answer. Right, so let's get straight into the team of the week. Some great results for some people, some not so great results if you're a Man United fan, if you're a Chelsea fan. Great result if you're a Liverpool fan. Great result if you are a Man City fan. So, team of the week, let's kick it off. As you know, I do a team of the week because I was so sick of seeing Garth Crooks do teams of the week that were absolutely ridiculous. I only pick the players that I have seen play. I'm not going to pick any player that has not either been live or I've missed the game. So don't get angry if I've not included your favourite player. Starting off in goal this week, we have got Alphonse Areola. At right back is Pedro Porro. We've got centre-backs of Akanji and Van de Ven. We've got Alphonso Davies at left back. We've got Basuma, Maddison and Phil Foden as a midfield 3. On the right, we've got Leroy Sané. On the left, we've got Federico Chiesa. And right up top is Michail Antonio. So why? Areola, obviously penalty save against Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez missed his penalty and Areola saved. It wasn't the greatest save. It wasn't the best of penalties. But Areola made one of my favourite saves this weekend. I think it was Madueke for Chelsea, had cut inside on his left foot. He'd hit a pretty tame shot, but it got a huge deflection. Areola, hand down to his left-hand side to knock it away from a corner. Just the reactions were brilliant, strong hand. And I think all round he had a really good game, made important saves, came and claimed the ball at really important times as well. So he's in there. Pedro Porro, right back against Man United for Tottenham. It was a risk. I think Emerson Royale impressed. He scored the goal last week, but Postecoglou brought in Pedro Porro to play that right back position against Garnacho, and I think he did a really, really good job, not just defensively but offensively as well. He was all over the place. He was up top, he was having shots, he hit the crossbar, and I think all round had a really good game for someone who's been scrutinised so much last season. I think he had a really good game against Man United. That should do a lot for his confidence. Akanji is in there at centre back. I could have picked Gvardiol for City because I thought he had a good game as well, but he was more on that left-hand side. I thought Akanji was really good, really solid against a really difficult Newcastle front line of Isak and Almiron on his side particularly. But he seemed to do a lot offensively. There was a few times that we picked up, and I think the commentators picked up quite a lot as well, that he was floating on the edge of the 18-yard box against Newcastle. Like the risk of him when you've got the pace of Gordon, Isak and Almiron on the counter. But he's involved in all sorts. He's involved in play. And I thought not just a great centre-back performance, but great all-round performance and doing exactly what Guardiola likes his centre-backs to be able to do and get involved, play the ball, pass the ball and be involved in the build-up to attacks as well. So he really impressed me. Mickey van der Ven for Tottenham also impressed me. He had quite a difficult job again in terms of someone who looks... Look at Mickey van der Ven. He doesn't look like the most mobile of centre-backs. He doesn't look like he'd be great in a foot race, but... I think he kept Marcus Rashford very, very quiet. I think he did an all-round very solid job and obviously kept a clean sheet. Right, okay, so left back was Alphonso Davies for me. People who didn't watch the Bayern game, you might have seen that they won quite comfortably in the end, but it was a much more difficult game than the scoreline suggests. They won 4-0 against Werder Bremen, but I thought Alphonso Davies, not just great defensively, but particularly great offensively. He's, I think, had talks about potentially playing left wing eventually instead of left back, but showed all the assets of a great winger. Super quick, but very, very disciplined in terms of defensively. I thought he had a great game as well. Yves Bissouma and James Maddison were also in there. I've got a lot of players from that Tottenham performance because I was particularly impressed by a team that would typically be quite an easy proposition. You go away to Tottenham and it's not always the most difficult game in recent history, but I thought the likes of Bissouma, who dominated that midfield with, again, you've got Casemiro, you've got Bruno Fernandes. I thought he was the best midfielder out of all of them. I think he dominated that midfield, played really well, got involved in a lot of attacks, broke up play. I was really impressed with him after a difficult season from last season. And James Maddison, home debut in the Premier League, was just a class act. I really like him. He's a player that I think a lot of United fans would have loved. And obviously we saw Mount versus Maddison, the two English midfielders. Maddison, again, another player who just looked like... I'm not going to say that United should have gone for him over Mount because I think he's a slightly different profile of a player, but... really, really, really good. Great on the ball, great on the half turn. You can give the ball to James Maddison anywhere on the pitch. He'll come out smiling like roses. And he does, because he's not just an attacking threat, but in terms of just build-up play, he can shoot, he can pass, and he can dribble. And that is I think when you can do those three things that well, to that level that he does, that puts you in the bracket of some of the best midfielders in the world. I think James Maddison is particularly good. He limped off. I think you would have seen a video of him limping off. I think he had a boot on after the game, and it didn't look good. It looks like he might be out. I don't know whether it was just a precaution, but slight worry for Tottenham fans with James Maddison limping and he was on crutches. Phil Foden gave the performance of the weekend for me. I've put him in there as a midfield three. Phil Foden, who I think a lot of people have asked questions about whether he really was going to be the player that everyone thought he was going to be. Pep Guardiola left him out a lot last season, but in from the start this season, he started his first two games of the Premier League and gave the man of the match performance against Newcastle. He was unbelievable. I think for Phil Foden, for me, I want to see Phil Foden as a midfield three. Where I've put him here, I want to see him as a midfield three, potentially for England, because that midfield three of Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden, we don't lose. We win a World Cup with those three in midfield. That's how I feel. I think it is crucial that we find a third player to play alongside the talent of Jude Bellingham, the stability of Declan Rice. And that third player is a player that can receive the ball on the half turn, can play through lines, can dribble, pass, shoot, do everything. And I think Phil Foden is that type of profile. Yes, for me, performance of the weekend was Phil Foden. I thought it was absolutely brilliant against Newcastle. Got the assist. Didn't get a goal, but got the assist. And I just thought, yeah, absolute top class. Rolls Royce of a player. When you give him the ball, he can do anything. He can turn, he can dribble. His first touch is absolutely immaculate 9 times out of 10. So yeah, Phil Foden's in there. On the left-hand side, I put Chiesa. I watched the Juve game. That was Sunday evening. I think with Chiesa, I think a lot of people don't really notice him because he doesn't put up big stats. You don't see him scoring 20 goals of the season which we expect from wingers, top-class wingers these days. But what you get from Chiesa is a constant threat. He is ultra fast, super quick. He did score on the weekend, but I think with Chiesa, you have a player that no defence can rest when you've got Chiesa on the pitch. He had a long-term injury and then another injury, and he was out for quite a while last season. Really looks like it could be a proper season for him. His big season at Juventus. He might be the main man for them in terms of pushing on and trying to win a league title again for Juve. I was really impressed with him, and yeah, he goes in at left wing. Who have we got for the right wing? We got Leroy Sané, right wing. That, again, it was close. Performance of the weekend for me was, I was torn between Leroy Sané and Phil Foden. Sané, for me, I think a lot of people, again, because he's moved to the Bundesliga, because he's not playing in the Premier League every week anymore, again, goes under the radar. But a really, really good performance for him. He scored twice in that Bayern Munich 4-0 win. He is maybe, I don't know, I think he's the most complete winger, one of the most complete wingers in world football. He can do everything. He's unselfish, but can shoot, can take free kicks, can score from long range, can score close range. He's two-footed. I really, really like Leroy Sané. I think he's a player that is severely underrated since his move to Bayern. Up top, we had Mikel Antonio. I don't think there's a player in the Premier League on his day that can play that that lone centre-forward role as well as Mikel Antonio. On his day, he is a bully. He bullied Chelsea's defence, scored an absolute corker of a goal out of nothing as well. And I think as well, when West Ham were under the cosh, they went down to 10 men. That Chelsea pressure was building, but he was an unbelievable outlet for probably the 50th to the 80th minute, receiving the ball back to goal, even on the edge of his own box, turning, breaking, and he was a constant threat. So even when Chelsea were pushing forward, trying to get that equaliser at 2-1 when West Ham were down to 10 men, they always had that threat of Mikel Antonio in behind, and eventually they did get the third goal late on after he'd gone off. But yeah, Mikel Antonio was unbelievable for me. And again, another real contender for performance of the weekend, but he's up there as the lone striker for me for this week's Team of the Week. Right, what have we got next? Oh, we've got Two Lies and a Truth. Two Lies and a Truth. Anyone who hasn't watched before or listened before, this is how it works. Two Lies and a Truth is two lies and a truth. Who'd have thought? It's two football stories that I have completely made up and one outrageous story that is actually true in the world of football. I've dug deep this week and I've come up with maybe one of my favourite 3 stories ever. So get ready for it. Two Lies and a Truth. The first story. Wrexham wingback Jacob Mendy only has 3 toes on his right foot. The 26-year-old, who's born in Gambia, lost 2 of his toes during his first job as a waste collector in Carshalton. That's story number 1. Jacob Mendy has 3 toes. Second story. Newcastle United once signed a player called Brian Penis. Newcastle discovered Penis playing for Dutch side Feyenoord. I'm going to get through this. Newcastle United once signed a player called Brian Penis. Newcastle discovered Penis playing for Dutch side Feyenoord. The Geordie side, however, never played with Penis, and after a short spell moved their Penis back to the Netherlands. And story number 3. Portuguese side Braga have a lifelong fan famous among the Braga supporters for his 4-foot-long moustache. Ricardo Bon Moustache is the man's name, and he holds the Portuguese record for having the longest ever recorded moustache. That's 3 stories. You have to choose which one is true, and I'm going to tell you which unbelievable story is true at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that as well. Right, TikTok submissions. I actually really enjoyed this last week. It was a new feature that we decided to do. We've got a few people that send me TikToks and I react to them. So last week we had Cal the Dragon. We had some guy crying because of kids being washed away in a flood, and we had some football related ones, I'm sure. I can't really remember. Okay, let's have a look.
Você é muito burro porque você não defendeu.
Well, he's not tall enough to go in goal, is he? Okay, now these ones are from Baker, so get some absolute random things from Baker.
Ronaldo's so good, the only way they can stop him is to foul him. Ronaldo taking on Suarez. Oh, that's a disgusting foul. Absolutely disgusting. Oh, and now he's biting him. Surely that's got to be a red card. You're not allowed to have your dinner on the pitch. Ronaldo up against John Terry. Beautiful bit of skill. Ronaldo.
Oh, he's still going.
Oh, Michael. Oh, well, he's karate kicked him. Absolutely.
How is he still going?
Absolutely disgusting. He's looking at a long-term suspension for that. Ronaldo with an open goal, and that's absolutely disgusting. Not very sportsmanlike and special behaviour from the special one there.
Is that a tie? That's a child, unfortunately. That is a man-child playing with toys. My question would be, where do you buy a puppet Mourinho with additional tie? Right, what else we got? Next video.
Here's what's happening with their transfer spend. They've spent £800 million on players. They spent £600 million last year. They capitalised that over 8 years. All those players were on 8-year contracts. So all of a sudden, that £600 million spend is reducing at £75 million a year. So this year's spend, right, will be £300 million, around about that.
Right.
And it'll be reducing at £60 million a year. So he's now losing £75 million each year from the spend last year, plus 60 this year. But he's gone and sold 250 million worth of players. He sold Kai Havertz for 60 odd million.
So this is how Chelsea are getting around the FFP laws. I think a lot of people have talked about Todd Boehly like he's just some madman doing whatever he wants, chucking money at things. This is a considered process. In this scale of business, when we're talking about hundreds of millions and it's billions of pounds worth of spending, this isn't just something that he's just slapping money at. It's a considered process. He has read the FFP laws. He understands them, and he's actually understands them to the point where he's now taking advantage of them. The 8-year contracts are part of that process and selling players on. So he is creating a buy and sell culture in Chelsea that allows him to bring in the best talent, young talent in world football for these extortionate fees, but also pushing out players and actually sometimes making a profit. The Kai Havertz deal was a corker. Brings him in, and I know this is before. That was before Todd Boehly, but brings him in on a huge fee and actually sells Kai Havertz for a fortune to Arsenal, even though he hadn't really impressed, but scored an all-important goal in a Champions League final. So it's great business from Chelsea. I think this is an underrated method and something that I think a lot of other clubs will look to do in the future as well, because it's seeing Chelsea nab players off big teams. Like the Caicedo deal moves from Brighton to Chelsea over the opportunity of moving to Liverpool, and Lavia comes as well, opportunity to move to Liverpool, but comes to Chelsea. It's allowing them to promise these players all sorts of wages, all sorts of a future based off a huge contract and not break any laws. I think it's maybe could be underrated and quite smart play from Todd Boehly.
Have a look at the state of that. It beggars belief. Now, maybe I'm a romantic football fan.
So this is Neymar's reported Al Hilal contract. We're looking at a monthly salary of 11.5 million, which is a daily total of 379 grand. That's every day he receives 379 grand, weekly wage of 2.6 mil. It's hard to conceive of that level of money. Obviously, look, Neymar's earned a fortune at PSG, so he's never going to be strapped for cash. But we are now looking at the Saudi League create generational wealth of individual players. Jordan Henderson went there on a huge contract. Benzema went there on a huge contract. Neymar's the latest to go there. And it would be difficult, and I know everyone's got their ethics and their morals, but it would be, how difficult would it be for you to turn down the chance to look after your children, your children's children, to look after your generation and generation, because you've signed to go and play for a Saudi club for 2-3 years. The money's astronomical and it's ridiculous. And there's an argument to say that it would be ruining football, but at the same time, the Premier League have been outspending every single other country and every other single league, and nobody's complained about that. So Saudi are just getting themselves their foot in the door, and they're doing it with quite a statement. That Neymar contract's outrageous.
I don't want to waste much of your time, Laura, on your final day. Just a few words of appreciation and then one verse of rhyme. Now, if that's okay.
Of course, that's fine.
Take your time.
We all know you have the face for TV, Laura, but you certainly have the voice for radio. So just a few words of thanks for your efforts on TalkSport these past years. Now, your bubbly...
That's really nice. Laura Wood's one of the good ones in terms of TV and radio presenters. I think a lot of them get on our nerves, but not many people... Nobody really dislikes Laura Woods. I think she's just in that perfect... I mean, she's perfect, but looks great, sounds great. She's not arrogant or egotistical. She understands that she's in a fortunate position, but also she's great at her job. So yeah, Laura Woods deserves everything she gets. Last few.
3 Burnley players are reportedly captained Erling Haaland in their Fantasy Premier League team ahead of game day week 1.
That's normal.
And Bent saying that's normal worries me. And I'm not saying that these Burnley players are not going to be playing to their best ability against Haaland when they do captain him. But I just find there's something so weird about it. I understand playing fantasy and everyone does it. All the football, of course you're going to do it if you're a footballer. I find it so weird that you can be playing against a player that you've captained and he scores. There is no way, if you're as into fantasy football as most people are, there is no way that you don't see a goal go in and go, 6 points, 4 points. Like you do. It's human nature. These are human beings. Darren Bent saying that's normal is really weird to me. The Burnley players, Haaland scores, and there's no part of you that thinks that comes off of those Burnley players that come off that pitch and go, yeah, I know we lost. We got beat 3-0. Captain Haaland though. I don't know. It's hard. It's difficult. Probably, of course, they're professionals, but it's weird.
He scored twice against them. What do you make of that?
It's normal. Like everyone in the Premier League does football.
That sit comfortably with me. You're playing for Burnley. You've picked Haaland, right, to captain your fantasy Premier League team, and you're on the pitch with him, and he scores. Is there a little bit he goes?
No, of course not.
Couple of points.
That's not. I remember being when I was playing, and I remember chatting to Johnny Evans. I chatted to Johnny Evans and
what, Man United boy?
Yeah, and we was in Manchester or Sunderland, and they were like, give me a bit of black banter, saying, Bentley, you get me loads of points for my fantasy team.
Well, you were playing them.
Obviously, played them at some stage, and he was like, you're doing wonders for my fantasy team.
But don't captain, back yourself. Don't. If my opinion would be, say you're the centre back or you're the goalkeeper, and you're facing Haaland, back yourself. Take Haaland out your team. And back yourself, put yourself as captain. Salah said he puts himself as captain every week. Like, I don't know. Yeah, doesn't sit well with me, I don't think. I don't know why. Because I know the logical of that, of course, they're professionals and they're not going to not play well or not try. They're not going to concede on purpose. It's just something weird about it.
If I were a Manchester United fan and Mason Greenwood went back into the team, that would be it for me. I would be tearing up my season ticket and sticking my scarf in the bin. How can you possibly hold a different opinion?
This guy's a prick. Whether you agree with Mason Greenwood coming back or not, that you should just put all allegiances to your club aside and never watch the team that you grew up with, that you have all these memories with, that really is life and death, your football team. You should just put that all aside, because the hierarchy have made, in some people's opinion, other people's opinion is different, but they've made a decision on a player. It's up to Man United fans. You don't just put your scarf down and throw away your season ticket. You don't just stop supporting your club. If you feel that strongly about a player who has done something despicable, then you make your feelings heard and you protest. You don't just go, oh, yeah, fuck that. I'm just going to never watch the team that I love. I'm never going to go to Old Trafford again. And it's so easy. It's so easy for opposing fans to say things like this. They have no thought in that. This guy you always hear him making arguments. He sounds like he fucking knows everything. You don't. You have just given maybe the most shallow opinion, the most least thought out opinion. If Mason Greenwood comes back, I should stop supporting Man United. Rachel Riley said that. Again, she's an intellectual. These are people who are completely out of touch with football and what football means to people. So, yeah, it might be a disgraceful decision by the club, but let's protest it. You don't throw away your season tickets, stop supporting them. I'll go and support Arsenal for a bit because Mason Greenwood... Ridiculous.
That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing!
Right, this video is great, actually. The video is, what do you hear? So you've just heard that. Now tell me what you hear when I press play. Are you hearing rotating pirate ship?
That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing!
Are you hearing that isn't my receipt?
That is embarrassing!
Are you hearing that is embarrassing? Are you hearing baptism piracy?
That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing!
Or are you hearing lobsters in motion? That's my favourite. Lobsters in motion in a Cockney accent.
That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing! That is embarrassing!
Also, Bart Simpson bouncing.
That is embarrassing!
Great submissions. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the people sending them in. Please keep sending me them because they are good fun to look through. Weirdly, because of the world of football and social media, there's so many that I've been sent that I've already seen, so I've not included them. Right, okay, around Europe. Right, Italy. Let's go to Italy. Belotti scored his first goal in Serie A for Roma since he joined. He joined last year. He spent a whole season at Roma playing up front. The guy bags goals as well. Always had them for Torino before he moved there. And hadn't scored a single league goal all season. Well, he got 2 on the weekend. So Belotti up and running for Roma this season as they drew 2-2 with Salernitana. That game did include an Antonio Candreva throwback with an absolute corker of a goal. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's a belter. Portugal, there was another 100th minute winner for Porto. I don't know if you've noticed, but if anyone pays attention to the Portuguese league, Benfica and Porto scoring an abnormal amount of late winners. They're always scoring in the 95th, the 96th minute. It's always a close game. They either batter a team 5-0 or it's 1-1 until the last minute and then someone comes up and scores in the 96th. Well, this week was 36-year-old Ivan Marcano, the centre-back, I want to say. He scored in the 100th minute of added time, the 10th minute of added time, but 100th minute of the game to secure a win for Porto. German League kicked off properly this week as well. Harry Kane got his first goal of the season in the Bundesliga. They won 4-0 against Werder Bremen. An absolute belter of a game between Augsburg and Mönchengladbach. That was 4-4, an 8-goal thriller there. Dortmund won 1-0. They squeezed an opening day victory as well. And what else happened? Oh, Leverkusen, again, squeezed past Leipzig 3-2. Great game there as well. In France, PSG, struggling again. They drew 1-1 with Toulouse. Kylian Mbappe scored their only goal of the game, but that is 2 opening games. That's 2 opening games. They've yet to record a win. I know it's early days, 2 games, but that's a crisis as far as PSG are concerned. 2 games, 2 not particularly difficult games in that league, both draws. Interesting. I think there might be a new French league winner this season. I called Marseille early doors, but Monaco started really strong as well. I think the Monaco title charge will depend completely on what happens with Ben Yedder. I think anyone who has read anything about Ben Yedder will know that he is currently being accused of rape. This is another footballer being accused of something like this. So if Ben Yedder stays and he clears his name or whatever happens and he continues scoring goals, he will continue scoring goals. I think Monaco could push for a title as well. On that topic, obviously, we mentioned just before with the TikTok submission of Mason Greenwood, a lot of noise has come out of the club and a lot of people with some really strong opinions, and understandably so, because it's not the nicest topic to talk about, but, you know, we'll talk about it. He's been accused and been charged with some pretty despicable things. The charges dropped, obviously, if everyone's been following the story, most people have. And then Man United have to make a decision whether to bring him back. No charges anymore. He's not served a sentence. He's not been found guilty. And he's not been able to clear his name. So a few factors at play. He's not been able to clear his name, right? Whether you think he deserves or not, for me, everyone deserves an opportunity to clear their name. If they're innocent or guilty, they deserve to explain exactly why they did what they did. This particular case has caused such a stir because of the handling of the process of bringing Mason Greenwood back in by Man United is so transparent. It's clearly such a business proposition. Look, we are looking at Mason Greenwood, and if we talk about the player as a player, we're talking about potentially one of the best players we've had in England since Wayne Rooney. I think he's that good. The talent there is unbelievable, and from a purely business point of view, Man United are looking at a 150 million pound asset that they are going to lose. So from a business point of view, you can understand why they're not going to jump to any conclusions when something is a little bit murky. But this particular topic is an opportunity for a massive club to make a statement that we do not condone anything. I know he wasn't found guilty. I understand that. But I think from a supporter's point of view, for me, I would want to see now my club say, we don't tolerate this. We've seen the evidence. We've seen the videos, the recordings. And yes, he might not have been found guilty, but this is absolutely unacceptable. And we make a statement to the whole football world that we will not have this man play for our club. I am a big believer that we shouldn't make our official opinions, especially as fans, until we know all the facts. We don't know all the facts. We, I think, owe the opportunity to Mason Greenwood to come out in an interview, not a pre-prepared statement. He needs to sit down with someone who's going to grill him and ask him exactly what happened. He has at least the opportunity then to explain himself. Most likely, we are all going to go, what you did is unacceptable. We don't want you anywhere near our club, and I don't think any other football club should feel any different. But I think the opportunity needs to be given to him to come out, and then we can tell our club what we think, and then we can make protests if they make the wrong decision. But at this point, it's so difficult because he's having a baby with this girl. He's still with this girl. The charges were dropped. We need to know, I think, before we can make an official comment on it as fans, I think we need to know why, and then we can tell him exactly what we think of him, which, you know, most likely is going to be that we think what he's done is absolutely disgusting. But if we're going to now and it's really convenient that it's a Man United player, because they are, look, Man United's the most hated club in the world. It's the most loved club in the world and the most hated club in the world. So it's convenient for a lot of people to be able to say he should never play football again. He's disgusting. This is where we draw our ethical and moral line, and understandably. But where are these people with Thomas Partey? Where are these people? And I came up with a list, because this is where we can question ethics and morals now, but somehow ignore them for 10, 15, 20 years of football. Marcos Alonso killed someone driving drunk. Dani Alves sexually assaulted someone. Ched Evans was convicted of rape. Joey Barton was convicted of assault. Jermaine Pennant, drink driving. Vinnie Jones, assault. Stig Tofting, assault. Tony Adams, drink driving. Craig Thompson is a sex offender. Lee Hughes killed someone drink driving. Duncan Ferguson was arrested for assault and charge. George Best, drink driving and assault. Marlon King, sexual assault, amongst other things. Frank Ribery, sex with a minor. Ronaldo, rape accusation, completely disappeared, paid off. We know that was true. The woman was paid off. Troy Deeney, assault. Serge Aurier, assault. Where are we going to start drawing the line ethically and morally? Is this the point? Because we've ignored it for years. All of these players that I've just listed went on to play football for their clubs, and there was a little bit of a stir, but there wasn't much made of it. You know, these players had successful careers after their indiscretions. This is on the same level as, you know, however you want to look at it, at least it's on the same level with Mason Greenwood as other people. Like I said, sexual assaults, killing someone while drink driving. And by the way, Lee Hughes, if you don't know who Lee Hughes is, he played, was it Notts County? I can't remember. He came back and played. You know, these people exist in our sport. Is it up to us to judge them ethically and morally? I think so, because of the scale of football these days. But where was everyone's ethical and moral dilemmas when all of these players have been still playing? Marcos Alonso plays for one of the biggest teams in the world. He killed someone drink driving. You know, we sing a few songs, we have a bit of banter with him when he comes to play at your ground, but that's it. We're not having the debates of, I'm never going to support this. Thomas Partey is getting away with whatever he's gotten away with. We've all seen the messages, or if you haven't, go and see them. The messages that he has sent or has been sent from the person that he allegedly has abused. And he seems to just be getting away with it. People still commending his performances every week. Mike Tyson, we eulogise about Mike Tyson being one of the greatest boxers ever. And we love the sport, and we love him as an icon of the sport. He raped someone when he was 18 years old, a similar sort of age to Mason Greenwood, and he was convicted and served time. And he came out, you know, granted, rehabilitated and changed a lot of his behaviours. But what we just forget about that. We are completely hypocritical on this topic, and we need to understand why, because we also need to understand, for you to criticise Man United and to criticise Man United fans, and in the same way that O'Brien guy did, saying that you need to stop supporting the football, I bet you he's talked about Mike Tyson in glowing ways and saying what a great boxer he was. He wasn't saying, I'm never going to watch boxing again because Mike Tyson boxed after he was convicted of this horrible act. So we need to actually ask ourselves, where do we land on it? Are we going to start judging everyone who plays football by the same standard? I hope so. I hope Mason Greenwood now sets a precedent for fans that we won't tolerate this. But it's just really funny how nobody was saying a word. I just listed 10, 15 players, different sports stars. I can name you rappers. Cardi B used to drug men and rob men, but we listened to her music. Chris Brown brutally beat Rihanna, but he'll sell out a tour and sell out albums. Where do we draw the line? Because apparently it's really easy to do it with football and really easy to do it with Man United players. Right, let's go to something a little bit less serious. Okay, right, 2 lies and a truth answer. We are coming to the end of the show, so let's go with our 2 lies and a truth answer. I'll go back through the 3 stories if you can't remember them. First one was Wrexham wingback Jacob Mendy only has 3 toes on his right foot. The 26-year-old, who was born in Gambia, lost 2 of his toes during his first job as a waste collector in Carshalton. Story number 1. Story number 2, Newcastle United once signed a player called Brian Penis. Newcastle discovered Penis playing the Dutch side Feyenoord. The Geordie side, however, never played with Penis, and after a short spell moved their Penis back to the Netherlands. And story number 3 was Portuguese side Braga had a lifelong fan famous among the Braga supporters for his 4-foot-long moustache. Yes, his name is Ricardo Bon Moustache, and he holds the Portuguese record for having the longest ever recorded moustache. Which one was true? Did you get it? It was story number 2. Brian Penis. Brian Penis was an actual player. Newcastle signed him. He got slated by some newspaper, moved back to Feyenoord, had a relatively unsuccessful career in Holland, but his name was Brian Penis and he played football, and it's a real story. Okay, the quiz question answer. We asked you, Paul Cook, in the earlier segment, you saw speaking in two different completely voices. We said, who does he manage? What have I said there? We saw him speaking in two completely different voices, completely different. The answer to that question was Chesterfield. He manages Chesterfield. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in once again. That's all from me this week. Please stay tuned for Baker's episodes. They are coming. So please stay tuned, and please go and, if you haven't already, subscribe to us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple, and TikTok. Go and follow us or subscribe to us. Any likes and retweets, any comments, anything on our stuff, we hugely appreciate. It does wonders for the algorithm and pushes our content out there so a few more people than just my family can watch us. Thanks once again, guys. Been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you again next week. Tell me stories of all that are great. Cherish these days before it's too